This is your boy DJ Leon. I'm back. I'm back from New York City. Let me tell you about New York City. If you ever get a chance to visit two places in this world, New York City should be one of them. I mean, New York City. I've been all over New York. I've been to Buffalo, Rochester, to Niagara Falls, and all that. But yeah, ain't nothing like the city. I love it. I love it. I love it. Now, I'm gonna tell you about New York City. They got a lot of have or have-nots. But New York City is so unique in the way each borough is unique in its own way. The way they do things, the way they eat, the way they celebrate, it's all different. The have and have nots, it's all different. Every single borough got their have and have nots, even though, the five boroughs are Staten Island, Queens, Manhattan, and then you got Brooklyn, and of course you got the Bronx. Now, I'm going to tell you about each one of them, and then I'm going to tell you about New York City overall. When you visit there, if you do the hop on, hop off bus, it's going to show you primarily Manhattan. It's not going to really show you the other four boroughs. And Manhattan, Harlem, believe it or not, a lot of people don't think about it, but Harlem is part of Manhattan Island. It's part of that. But saying that, Manhattan is crowded. But it doesn't bother me because the sidewalks are wide and you got to get used to a lot of construction. There's always a building being torn down and a new one being built in its place. But as far as New York, you got all four seasons, as you know. You got snow, you got the heat, you got a little everything. But you got every store you want. But don't think of Manhattan as just shopping. It's got a lot of monuments too. And all the monuments seems to be crowded. But one thing about Manhattan I do like is that if you want to go to the other boroughs, it's very easy through, car or boat or whatever, however you want to do it. But if you can't make it in New York City, you can't make it nowhere on this earth. Because New York City is as diverse as you can imagine. You can't make it nowhere on this earth in New York if you can't make it in New York City. But Manhattan itself, you can make it in Manhattan. It's just expensive as hell. It's super expensive as far as not so much food, but as far as just living there. Living there is expensive. Brooklyn's expensive as hell, as well. But Brooklyn got the pretty brownstones. Brooklyn got some brownstones that just blow your mind. Staten Island is like living in the suburbs. Queens is almost that way, with the two big airports on either side of Queens, on the north and the south. But Queens is similar. But now, here's where New York City stands out as the number one food city, maybe number one or two. I do like Los Angeles a lot. But each borough have their own groups of people. And what I mean by that is cultures. And there's no one borough have just one type of culture. Each borough got multiple cultures, but there's always one dominant. Like you go to Queens, you got, a lot of Jamaicans. You go to, matter of fact, they got a section called Jamaica Queens. You go to the Bronx, they got a lot of people from the DR, from Dominican Republic, and from Puerto Rico and other places. It's more of a Caribbean type flavor. You see oxtails on every menu. You go to Brooklyn, it's almost like you get Manhattan rejects. You get almost Manhattan prices, and people who work in Manhattan, you get a lot of them in Queens, and you got the pretty brownstones. Staten Island is suburban to the max. It's very, very suburban. Manhattan got great food because you can get some great food in Harlem, Manhattan downtown, and pizza joints, and you got food trucks everywhere in New York City. You got food trucks everywhere. So when people say I can tell you about New York City, unless they go to all five boroughs like I did, it's kind of difficult to tell you about all five boroughs. About New York City overall. You can't just go to one part and say, I know New York City. Because you go to a different part, you see something totally different in a different way of life, and how they view things. Like, for example, you go to the Bronx, it's all about the Yankees. You go to Queens, it's all about the Mets. It's like the Jets football. The Jets now play in New Jersey. And it's almost like the people from New Jersey woke up and moved to New York City. But New York City got little everything, lots of bridges because, you got to take the bridges. You got to take bridges to get to Manhattan, or to the Bronx, or to wherever you're going to, or even the reverse way around. But like I said earlier, if you can't make it in New York City, you can't make it nowhere in this world. You might as well just have not been born. You might have just stayed in there and just peeked out. Now, let's talk about crime. New York City got a lot of crime, but not percentage-wise very, very high compared to other big cities. It's very low. And a lot of the crime, the Bronx is probably the most crime-filled area of New York City. The Bronx got a lot of crime. But when I say a lot, when you think about it, they got like 1.5 million people just in that small space on the Bronx. The crime is not really that bad. Can I live with that? Yes. But New York City, you got a lot of people with a lot of money on Manhattan and Brooklyn. They got a lot of money. Because nothing is cheap in Manhattan or Brooklyn as far as living goes. And now, they do got some terrible roads. They are potholes is everywhere. You look at this video, there's potholes everywhere. You're going to need shocks on your cars after 2 years. You're going to need shocks and struts because those roads are going to tear them up. And also, they got speed cameras everywhere. But here's the funny part. I'm not sure why they have speed cameras everywhere because you don't go very fast. It's like London. It's between speed bumps and a lot of traffic. If I lived in New York, I would have me an e-bike. I would have an e-bike like hell. That's the fastest way around New York. A car is not fast. And you get on one of those hop on, hop off buses, you may get there be on it for 3 hours. You may be on it for 3 hours, but you're only going 10 blocks. You ain't going very far. So just get an e-bike, get a GoPro, and zoom around New York. But I was talking about crime earlier. I didn't experience or see anything that looked suspicious. And most of my time was spent in Manhattan, the Queens, and Brooklyn. I stayed in Brooklyn. And one reason why is because nothing is really far in New York as far as distance goes. What makes things far is the speed that you move at. You'd be like, wow, I'm only going 6 miles. But then it's 40 minutes away. But if you're on an e-bike, 6 miles, it's about 20 minutes away. You can zoom around New York City. I'm talking about from borough to borough to borough. And, it's great. I love Central Park. You got the museums, the Guggenheim, and you'll see pictures of all that. But you got all that in New York City. And none of them are far apart distance-wise. And actually, we walked a lot between the museums. We just walked. Central Park, you got some great food trucks. Now, it's not just food trucks. It's these small little kiosk almost type things. They sit them outside, and I'm not sure what's up with this halal food, all this shit. I want just regular food. I don't want to pay extra because it's been blessed by somebody I don't even know or don't even believe in. Either way. So, you get a chance, you go to New York City, go eat some of the food and eat on the streets, get some pizza and other stuff. The pizza is not as good as Chicago's pizza. But then again, I'm a deep dish person more than a thin crust, so I'm a little biased there. But the hot dogs are great. They just almost as good as Chicago hot dogs. Now, one thing New York has that most cities don't have, they got probably the best looking skyline in the world. The skyline is just pretty. You look at some of these pictures when I was going to the Statue of Liberty, you look back and you see a skyline that's, I'm going to say probably, I think is not necessarily the best looking from a distance. Chicago has that beat. Chicago, you get in the river, Chicago got a beat. You get in the lake, it's got a beat. But New York their skyline just goes on forever, ever, and ever. And some of these videos are showing you they got just a bunch of tall buildings that I like. Because even though you may see a name on a building, it's multiple companies in those buildings. And Wall Street, it's just a tourist area with a bunch of banks and a bunch of the Wall Street Exchange and all the other kind of stuff that you'll see in New York walking around. And I drove a lot in New York, which is no big deal. And parking isn't too bad. Here's how you can park in New York fairly cheap. This is how you do it. You go and you reserve a parking spot online from one of the, it's easy to do, but reserve a parking spot online. And don't be just showing up parking. They're going to charge you $80, $90 a day like Boston. No, go online, reserve a parking spot. They give you a fixed amount, what it's going to cost. You know it's going to cost you $40 for 6 hours. Over and done with. Don't be gone longer than 6 hours. And try and park in the middle of where you want to go at. Don't park next to where you want to go at, because when you go somewhere else, you got a long walk. So we would pick two main things to do that day or to visit that day and find a parking lot in the middle of both of them. And that way we can walk left or right about the same distance to both of them. And $40, that was it. You know, and they're going to charge you toll roads to go back and forth between New York, the boroughs, and New York outer suburbs. It's going to be a toll road. And the road, like I said, the roads are crap. I'm talking about the interstates, the local roads, they're crap. But that's kind of expected when you you're in a big city up north. You know, the seasons are going to tear the roads up. Now, saying that, I said about crime, nah, it's not a big deal. And, you know, we walk around a lot at night to go eat and stuff. One thing I want to bring up is that a lot of the great restaurants were in Queens. There are some in Brooklyn, but I don't like them as much because Brooklyn got a lot of newer, younger families up and coming. So they have a lot of that food. And I can care less about all that stuff. I want some good old, I want, Iranian food. I had great Persian food. I had great German food. I had great Italian food. The steakhouses are overrated in New York. They're overrated. I've had better steaks in Texas and other places. I've had better steaks. But some reason people think New York is the home of all the great steakhouses. No, they are the home of all the expensive steakhouses. You're going to spend $80, $90 on a steak. In some places in New York, don't even take credit cards. I mean, these are upscale steakhouses. Don't take credit cards. They're probably skimming or not paying taxes on the receipts. I don't know, but they don't take credit cards, which I thought was kind of odd. Some of the like Peters and all that kind of stuff. Some of the upscale ones. I'm like, these don't take credit cards. Odd, unusual. And the one thing about New York, you're not gonna find a lot of damn gas stations, for your car. You're not gonna find a lot of that in New York. But you don't burn a lot of gas in New York. But you're not gonna find a lot of gas stations unless you go to like Staten Island or Queens. And Staten Island is primarily for shopping. You can shop in Manhattan all day long. Now, I did not shop in Manhattan because the same stores are where I live at. You do find a couple one-offs, but it's not that great. And then it's not like it's a discount. And you got the same stores, you got the same stores in Harlem. Queens got them, all the boroughs had the same stores primarily. And then they have their own unique stores to just their borough. But and the people in New York, they don't even talk to you. They don't even look at you. And you got people you're gonna hear every language in the world. You're gonna hear every language. It's like Los Angeles. Even though Los Angeles is dominated by Spanish, New York, you hear every single dialect in the world. And people just go about their own business. They go about their own business and it's no issues. Lots of one-way streets. And primarily, you go to the ship terminal, that is very congested. When I say ship, the ones that go back and forth across the bays, the New York Bay, the Jersey Bay, the Statue of Liberty, you're going to have Staten Island. The Staten Island Ferry is super, super crowded. The Staten Island Ferry is very, very, very crowded. But it's not so crowded you don't get on. It's crowded where you're not going to sit where you want to sit at unless you're the first one on the ship, on the ferry. They got lots of those. But as far as food is great, I like street food, so I didn't see a problem with the street food. And around Central Park and other areas, around every tourist place, you're going to have a lot of food trucks around all of them. So if you miss it here, go up 5 blocks, you're going to see something different, a museum or something else, and they got food trucks there, and they got the same food trucks. Nathan Hot Dogs is at every single stop. I don't know if Nathan owned the trucks or Nathan just sell the products to people who own those food trucks. But you're gonna see the exact same thing. You're gonna see the pretzels, so you're not missing anything out. And you're gonna run across the Jewish community, the Iranian community, the Hispanic community, the African American community. You're gonna run across all of them. Every island has everything on all of them. Every borough, has everything on all of them. All kind of people. Now, whether they're wealthy or poor or whatever, that may differentiate depending on which borough you're in. It depends on which borough you're in. In New York, people are not food people. Not food people. They are not car people. They are foodies, but not car people. And you can, what I mean by that is that you see a lot of banged up cars in New York. People hit each other and they just keep moving. Nobody stops because you stop, they're going to be on their horn like it's nothing. Those people love their horns. That's why horns were invented to send cars to New York. That's just how you're going to feel. Because they be on the light turns green, you got about a second to leave. You will hear a horn quick. But I don't like sitting in traffic either, so I can totally understand that. And all the lights seem quick as hell. I'm like, Jesus Christ, the light just turned. It goes from green to red in like 4 cars, but it comes back around very, very quick. Bedford-Stuyvesant is a nice area. Every single borough got good and bad. Every single borough got good and bad. And I did not go to Long Island on this trip because I had no need to go to Long Island on this trip. But when I go back next time, I'm going to spend a little time on Long Island and probably some more time in the Bronx, because there are parts of the Bronx I went to, but there's some parts that I did not go to because of time limitations. And from where I was staying at, the Bronx is at least an hour away, but only 10 miles, but at least an hour away. I enjoyed Marcus Garvey Park, in Harlem. Harlem got a lot of great things there, and Harlem may have the best soul food in New York. I'm not going to say that because I only went to one place called Sylvia's, and that was overrated because the original owner died, and of course those who took over after her, you didn't maintain the same quality because I've been there before. But it's some other places that got better food, not far from Sylvia's, but there's some other places that got better soul food. But the Queens had the Queens borough had the best German food and best Iranian food. Brooklyn has some good Iranian food. Brooklyn's, like I said, the food's kind of weird in Brooklyn a little bit because they cater toward younger people who goes strictly by the look and how many calories, and where older folks don't really get into all that. We just want good tasting food, and whatever you got to add to it. But don't say, look how pretty it is. No, how good do it taste? Now, I did find some great Caribbean restaurants in Brooklyn that was not far from the Queens area. But they do have some good food there, and I really enjoyed the food. And I tried everything there in 2 weeks, and it is definitely one of the top-rated food cities in the world. And I've been around the world many, many times. Walk, crawl, airplane, bus. I've been around the world, and New York food is definitely up there. I would rate them probably number 2 behind L.A. The only thing LA is missing that's different is Caribbean food. But the one thing New York didn't have a lot of was Asian food. They got a lot of Asians, but it seems like most of them come from China. But you didn't see a lot of Thai food. Now, we did have some Thai food, but I didn't see Malaysian food. Some things I just didn't see. And LA had those kind of places. Hell, even Seattle had Moroccan food. Didn't see a lot of it in New York. But everything I ate was good from other cultures, other countries. Everything I ate was good, and I kind of knew what I was getting into. So when you get that chance and you want to go to New York, you cannot go for 3 or 4 days and say, I've been in New York. If you go to New York for 3 or 4 days, you just wasted your damn money. Go to New York and spend a week or two. Spend a week or two in New York. If you want to go there, you're going to spend the money, and stay in an Airbnb. Don't stay in a hotel. Hotels are going to charge you a fortune in New York. A fortune. Stay in an Airbnb. You're going to pay 2/3 of the cost, and the experience is going to be totally different. And you can drive to New York like I did. Just be prepared to either drive a lot or drive to New York, park, because Uber is super expensive. Because you're in a car for a long time to go a short distance. Uber is very, very expensive. Now, you can be brave if you understand the subway. We never took the subway, but I've taken it before. But like I said, you can be brave and you can do that. I just didn't have enough confidence to read the maps and make sure I got on the right trains, even though I'm a big proponent and have taken public transportation many, many times in my life. I just didn't have time to understand the New York one. But I didn't make an effort either. Where in London, I just mastered it in day one. You know, but New York got probably the most extensive subway system in the world. Maybe London's close, if not the same. But you can go to New York and you can take the subway. It's very, very cheap. It's very cheap. And the one thing about New York, if you cannot walk for an hour, don't go to New York because you're going to have to walk. You're going to have to walk. Nothing is going to be right in front of you. You're going to have to walk 4 or 5 blocks. And you know, city blocks are big as hell. You know, you're going to have to walk, which I love doing because I got a lot of things to see with my camera and stuff, but you're going to have to walk. And like I said, Queens is just so pretty. Staten Island reminds me of where I live at, in the suburbs. So there is nothing new there outside of, people shopping. You know, I mean, it's just a lot more quieter area. When I say that, when I say quieter, it's really got a lot of families. But so do Queens. Queens got families with yards, and then Brooklyn don't have yards. They all got brownstones, but they're pretty, But and the Bronx is just congested. The Bronx is just congested as hell. But the people seem more community oriented, and in the Bronx than they did in other suburbs. Everybody knows everybody. You stop and see somebody, everybody knows somebody else. So New York's the real deal. If you're gonna go to, if you only got 1 or 2 places you ever want to visit in your life, New York City should definitely be one of those 2 places that you go in your life. Like L.A. New York ain't got the beaches of L.A. or the weather of L.A., but it's got everything else plus. Because as far as seeing things of unique history, like the Statue of Liberty and some of the other things, New York got it all. But at the same time, some places you go and you will see the real size of things, and it's not what you expected. But it's definitely worth the time and effort and the money to go to New York and just hang out. New York is so easy to fill your day up. Your day go by so fast, like in LA. You be like, I did 3 things and my whole day's gone. Well, if you go from one of the 4 boroughs to Manhattan, your whole day is gone. Your whole day is gone. And but if you like Broadway shows, and I went to a couple of them, like the Michael Jackson experience. If you like Broadway shows and other stuff, you can't go wrong. You can't go wrong. I like a good midday matinee or a midday Broadway show. And that's what we did. I didn't want to go at night because I knew it was going to be congested downtown at night. And of course, I was there when they were doing a couple of war shows that they broadcast on TV later. But during the daytime, and you get out at 3:30, 4 o'clock, go have a good meal or a snack from a food truck. You can't go wrong in New York. Just check out these videos, and you'll see some of the places I went to and some of the food I ate. I mean, you'll see a lot of that because I ate 3-4 times a day, and I normally never do that, but I did in New York because everywhere you go, you got a food truck with something different from the last food truck you had. And what I mean by that is that you see a bunch of food trucks. They got hot dogs, pizza, and all this other stuff. And then you go to a different borough or a different section with food trucks like 4 blocks over. They're selling fruit, drinks. They're selling all kind of stuff. And of course, you got the 9 million people selling "I Love New York" T-shirts and hats and everything else, which is kind of cool. If you want to get a souvenir. But that's not me because I can get those anywhere. And plus, you may put it on your head and it falls apart. There's no refunds. And even though it's $9 to $10, whatever. One of the problems in New York, if you buy a souvenir, whatever souvenir you buy, you are definitely gonna see the same souvenir a block away from the attraction that's going to be half the price. And you start asking yourself, well, how far am I going to walk before the price gets to $1? So before you know it, you're near another, before you know it, you have walked past all these souvenir sellers or vendors, and then you're back to the high price again because you're next to another attraction. You turn 2 blocks, you're like, oh, the hats are $10 again. I just had it down to $3 damn. Well, I'll just keep walking. You'll be going down, 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 and before you know it, well, you're back to another attraction. And on Manhattan, you got an attraction every other block. Every 4 or 5 blocks, you got a major attraction in Manhattan. Brooklyn is just, your head is turned like the devil in The Exorcist because it's just twisting because you're seeing so many pretty things. Queens is more like you're seeing a suburb like Staten Island, and the Bronx have you wondering, how did they get so many people in such a small area? And Harlem is not a borough because it's on the island of Manhattan, but they got a lot of pretty things to see in Harlem too. But from what I know too, in any of the boroughs, you can make a wrong turn and you be in areas you might not want to be in. That's any of the boroughs. So don't think all the crime is limited to just the Bronx. That's just where the most crime is. But they all got crime. Manhattan got crime. I didn't see the pickpocketers I see in some other countries, some other big cities in other countries. I didn't see a lot of that. But you're so congested though in Manhattan. And you got people walking and taking their buses, and traffic is not that bad as far as cars, because you actually move. Traffic actually moves. But they do got some scenic getaways though. So this is your boy DJ Leon D saying, man, New York, man, oh man, you gotta go there. If you haven't lived life, and I don't care where you're from. Peace out.